Alan Tran was a software engineer in his 40s who lived a quiet life in a two-story house at the end of Greenwood Street. This neighborhood was typically calm. Houses painted in pastel colors, small manicured lawns. Alan didn't socialize much or try to make many friends, but he kept his home and yard tidy, dedicated to his work each day. Though he lived alone, everything about his house was well organized and neat. Children around the street often spotted him walking in the early mornings, a small trash bag in hand, then heading right back inside to work. His life seemed simple, without fanfare. Yet because he was so reserved and private, some neighbors found him distant or hard to approach. That Thursday afternoon, after finishing an important project, Alan brewed himself a cup of coffee. As he sipped it, he opened his computer to check the state of his home network. For the past week, his Wi-Fi had been sluggish. Video calls froze, streaming videos stuttered. Given his IT expertise, he suspected someone might be mooching his bandwidth or tampering with his network. On screen, he accessed his router's settings and saw a strange device connected. Its name wasn't just a random sequence. It was specifically labeled mhome_210. Alan frowned. He knew only 3 legitimate devices in his household: his phone, his laptop, and his smart TV. He never shared his Wi-Fi password with anyone, so how did this rogue device manage to connect? Annoyed, he decided to disconnect every unknown device and reset his password. To be extra safe, he enabled advanced encryption, something he had considered unnecessary before. "Whoever's behind this must know their way around computers," he murmured. It was a sweltering day. Alan stepped onto his front porch for a breath of fresh air while testing his newly reset Wi-Fi on his phone. He squinted at the signal bars, waiting a moment to confirm that the changes had taken effect. Across the way, Ms. Mary Jiang, a woman in her early 50s and known for watching the goings-on in the neighborhood, was watering her garden. She lived in the house next door and had always found Alan mysterious. Spotting him leaning against the wall, tapping intensely on his phone and glancing around, her mind leapt to the worst conclusions. What's he doing? Maybe he's hacking into someone's camera or doing something illegal, she thought. Jumping to conclusions was in her nature. She immediately pulled out her phone and dialed the local police station, speaking in a tense voice. "Hello. I need to report something suspicious. There's a man standing outside his house messing with his phone for a long time. It seems really suspicious. Yes, the address is 53 Greenwood Street." After hanging up, Ms. Jiang's hands trembled. She believed she had just done a public service, alerting the police before anything bad could happen. Alan had barely gone back inside when he heard police sirens blaring in front of his house. He glanced out the window, surprised, as a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, both looking serious and professional. The taller man was Lieutenant David Huang, while the woman, shorter in stature but equally confident, was Sergeant Anna Schwan. They walked toward the front door. "Hello," Lieutenant Huang said in a clear, direct tone. "Are you Alan Tran, the owner of this property?" "Yes," Alan replied, frowning. "Is something wrong?" Sergeant Schwan added, "We received a call about suspicious behavior. Can you explain what you were doing outside earlier?" Alan exhaled, frustrated but trying to stay calm. "I was just fixing my Wi-Fi settings because I noticed a strange device on my network. I'm the victim here. Someone's stealing my bandwidth." As they spoke, Ms. Jiang hurried over, pointing at Alan. "No, I saw him. He kept looking around, tapping his phone like he was up to something shady." Alan reined in his annoyance. He unlocked his phone, showing the router logs to the officers. He explained how the internet had slowed, how he'd found mhome 210, and how he decided to reset his password. Lieutenant Huang, who had some tech knowledge, leaned in, asking Alan to enlarge the connection log. Just then, Alan noticed something disturbing. The device hadn't just used his internet. It appeared to have accessed security camera feeds. "Wait, this is worse than I thought," he muttered. "What do you mean?" Huang asked urgently. Alan explained. "Here in the log, you can see that whoever owns mhome_210 was viewing my camera feeds. I have cameras outside my house, but it looks like they've managed to tap into them." The two officers exchanged shocked looks. Ms. Jiang stared at them, puzzled. "Cameras? What does that mean?" Alan probed deeper into the data, trying to identify the source IP. He discovered that mhome210 wasn't just connecting to his own cameras. It also showed connections to several other IP addresses, very likely more home routers or security systems on the same street. Whoever was behind this was systematically spying on multiple households. Sergeant Xuan put a hand on her belt, her voice firm. "We need to track this device fast, or more neighbors will have their privacy violated." Alan typed a few commands, cross-checking logs. A moment later, his face grew grim. "This device, it's sending and receiving data from an address right here on Greenwood Street," he said. "You mean the suspect is nearby?" asked Lieutenant Huang. Alan nodded. "It's not from somewhere remote. It's from a house just a few doors down." At that, Ms. Jiang went pale. Who would do that right here? Some burglar might have broken in, right?" Alan continued his analysis, trying to pinpoint a MAC address. Moments later, he spoke quietly. "It looks like it's coming from house number 49, registered to Kevin Nguyen." Ms. Jiang's face turned ashen. Number 49 was exactly where her nephew, Kevin Nguyen, a 20-year-old studying at a local tech college, had been staying. "No, that can't be," she whispered. "We have to speak with him," Sergeant Xuan said firmly. They quickly moved to house number 49. Ms. Jiang was so flustered she almost dropped her watering can. She could only hope it was a misunderstanding. Upstairs, in Kevin's small room crowded with textbooks and gadgets, the young man froze when he saw the police. Lieutenant Huang requested to see Kevin's laptop. Kevin initially refused, citing privacy, but relented when threatened with a warrant. Alan, with the officer's permission, assisted in scanning Kevin's system. They soon uncovered sniffing tools and illicit camera surveillance software. Indeed, mhome_210 matched Kevin's laptop. "Kevin, what is all this?" Sergeant Xuan demanded. I only wanted to test my skills," Kevin stammered. "I'm studying cybersecurity, and I wanted to see if I could break into a neighbor's Wi-Fi." "Do you realize this is illegal?" Lieutenant Huang cut in, his voice stern. Kevin hung his head. He admitted that it started innocently enough, but once he discovered he could access security cameras, curiosity got the better of him. He insisted, "I wasn't trying to harm anyone, just seeing if it was possible." Ms. Jiang stood in a corner, shocked into silence. She had never imagined her own nephew would be snooping on their neighbors. Lieutenant Huang and Sergeant Xuan exchanged glances, then handcuffed Kevin for unauthorized computer access and illegal surveillance. Kevin didn't resist, seeming to realize how serious his offense was. While they escorted him outside, Alan waited in the front yard. He didn't look triumphant, only relieved that his innocence was established. Ms. Jiang, eyes welling with tears, broke from the group and approached him. I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I was too suspicious and caused you trouble. I had no idea my own nephew was behind it all." Alan recalled how vehemently she had accused him of wrongdoing. Seeing her remorse, he inhaled deeply, then answered, "Sometimes, what we see from the outside isn't the truth. I hope you won't judge people so quickly next time." Ms. Jiang's eyes brimmed with tears, and she couldn't find more words to say. She watched sorrowfully as they led Kevin to the patrol car. The incident rattled the entire neighborhood. People were shocked to learn that a young student with a promising future had committed such a crime. Kevin now faced criminal charges, which could derail his studies and future in tech. Police confiscated his devices for further investigation. Initial findings suggested Kevin had hacked into at least 4 homes on Greenwood Street, obtaining their Wi-Fi passwords and accessing their security cameras for weeks. Many residents were unnerved by the notion of being secretly watched in their own houses. As for Alan, he cooperated fully with the authorities, providing evidence. Then, he returned to his usual quiet life. Still, he was more vigilant, bolstering his security measures. Perhaps he also understood that keeping too much to himself could make him a target of suspicion. He didn't hold a grudge against Ms. Jiang, but remained cautious. He hoped the neighbors learned an important lesson about not jumping to conclusions without proof. A few days later, life in the neighborhood gradually returned to normal. Residents discussed the importance of protecting personal data, updating Wi-Fi passwords, installing firewalls, or removing any unnecessary indoor cameras. Ms. Jiang, after the shock, became less nosy about people's private affairs. She focused on helping her nephew, hiring a lawyer to seek a lighter sentence. Every time she passed by Alan's house, guilt gnawed at her for wrongfully accusing him. Meanwhile, Alan continued his routine of coding, enjoying a cup of coffee and strolling through the neighborhood in the early mornings. He realized many neighbors cared about his well-being, and sometimes a small friendly gesture could diffuse suspicions. Occasionally, he greeted Miss Jiang when they met outside, not as distant as before. The story of Alan Tran and Kevin Nguyen stands as a warning that not everyone who is quiet harbors sinister intentions, and not everyone close to us is necessarily harmless. Preemptive accusations without evidence can harm the innocent, while the true culprit might be right under our noses. Had Ms. Jiang examined things more closely, she might have realized something was amiss with her nephew's devices, instead of suspecting Alan. As for Kevin, by testing his skills illegally, he violated others' privacy and now faces serious legal consequences. Ultimately, everyone took away a lesson. Don't jump to conclusions without sufficient evidence. Respect privacy and individual freedoms. Technology can be a double-edged sword. Misused, it can cause harm to many and ruin the perpetrator's own future. In the end, the neighborhood found a measure of calm, but with a deeper understanding of caution and empathy. Alan continued his peaceful life. Ms. Jiang and Kevin took responsibility for what happened, and the community grew more vigilant about the hidden risks technology can bring. Most importantly, they learned to look at situations from multiple angles, avoiding baseless fears and refraining from letting curiosity tip over into unlawful actions.